Hi, this is Abigail Stolfe from the firm Stolfe, Ziegler and Toms River in Morristown, and I'm sitting here today with Desiree in order to explain to you how to go about attending your first divorce consultation. So a lot of people call nervous about what to say, what to bring, how to act for a divorce consult. It's a nerve-wracking time, and we know that. We know that that's true of everybody, whether you're the man or the woman, whether you're asking for the divorce or responding to a divorce. So the purpose of this video is to help you sit through a divorce consultation so you can better understand what a divorce consultation looks like, how it could feel, and the type of information you would be expected to know. So this is Desiree. Hello.
Hello.
Desiree is going to be our wife who's here looking for a consultation in order to divorce her husband. So I'm going to ask her the basic questions that we would ask in a divorce consultation and give her the basic information we would give at the end of a divorce consultation. This will help you to understand not only what to expect in the questioning, but what to expect and not to expect at the conclusion of the consultation. So I'm actually going to grab a piece of paper because otherwise I'll forget what she tells me. Okay. So Desiree, you're here for your divorce consultation.
Correct.
And you are married to a man whose name is what?
Brian.
And where do you and Brian live?
6 Ann Street.
6 Ann Street. And where's that?
Toms River.
Okay. And does Brian still live there?
Yes.
Okay. And when were you married?
May 7th.
Of what year?
19.
2019. So
Yes.
it is a just shy of 1 year marriage.
Right.
Okay. And do you have any children?
1.
One child. And how old is the child?
1.
So the child was born prior to the marriage?
Yes.
Okay. And do you work?
Yes.
And how much do you earn? Approximately.
Weekly or monthly?
Whatever you know.
32,000.
A year?
Yes.
Okay. And that's your gross pay, right?
Right.
That's not what you take home, it's what you get at the top.
Right.
Okay. And what does Brian work?
Yes.
And how much does Brian earn?
62.
And is that a year also?
Yes.
And is that his gross pay?
Yes.
Okay. And do you and Brian own or rent Ann
Own.
Street? Own. And about how much is Ann Street worth? Best guess. What would Zillow tell you it's worth?
32.
320?
Yeah.
Okay. And how much do you owe on it?
Half.
Okay, so you owe about 160?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you bought the house, how did you get the money to put down on the house?
Oh, it was our savings.
You had savings?
Yes.
Okay. And did you get any from your parents or any inheritance?
No.
Okay. And was it joint savings or was it just one person's savings?
One person.
One person. Okay, and which person was that?
Myself.
You. So you were able to save a bunch of money in order to buy a house.
Correct.
Correct? And you had a child together with Brian, who you've been married to for just shy of a year.
Yeah.
Okay. So the issues that I see here are, oh, let me ask you one more question that I forgot. Is the house in your name alone or in your name with Brian?
My name is Brian.
So you made it joint title?
Yes.
Okay. And so that's really one of your concerns,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. So obviously, as to the issue of parenting time, we'd have to work out a parenting time schedule.
Right.
So a lot of people come in and they say, well, we just want shared, or we want joint custody, because people read the words joint custody on the internet and think that somehow they know what that means. And the truth is, what joint custody means is that you and Brian are going to be making decisions for your child together.
Right.
Education, doctors, education, anything that's relative to your child's life. It has nothing to do with who's going to have the child on what day of the week.
Right.
That's parenting time. So one of the suggestions that I would give you leaving here today is look at your schedule, look at Brian's schedule, and try to determine where your child should be on what day of the week. Is it overnights? Is it non-overnight? And then see if you and Brian can come to an agreement on those days of the week, the weekends, and what the overall schedule would look like. If you cannot, then you know you have a custody and parenting time dispute. And that is a track we would have to take. These are certain avenues we would have to explore. Do we need a custody evaluator? Can we just go to a mediator? Maybe we just need some education for both you and Brian on what a realistic parenting time schedule would look like, taking into consideration the factors under the law and taking into consideration the realities of both of your schedules. So that's what we would do, and what I would advise you to leave here and do with Brian. The other issue that you have is obviously child support, and that's through the New Jersey Child Support Wage Guidelines. So we would just prepare that calculator for you, would take into account your income and his income, any mandatory deductions you both had from your paycheck, and then it would give us a child support number. But before we can do that, we need to know the custodial and parenting time arrangement so that we can consider those overnights that Brian might have and that you might have. And finally, and really what the big issue that brings you here is the house.
Right.
So the house you've titled jointly, and from what I understand, the majority of the asset was acquired because you were able to acquire it through a savings account that you had prior to the marriage. You deeded it jointly. The fact that you put it in joint title does not necessarily mean that Brian's entitled to 50% of the house. If I assume that you put all the money down, and I assume that Brian did nothing to improve the house or enhance the house, meaning he didn't put on an addition, it took it from $160,000 to $320,000, then the interest that Brian would have would be quite small, if at all. However, if it turns out that you bought this house and it was a 2-bedroom beach bungalow, and Brian knocked it down and he built by hand this big lavish house, well, then Brian's got some interest in that equity that was built as a result of his conduct and his sweat. So when Brian and you sit at a table with me or the mediator, or me and his attorney and the mediator, that is something you would want to make sure that you've really solidified. If he did put in a lot of equity, if he did sweat equity, and if he did do a lot of work, then we would want to quantify that before we sat at the table, because we want to have a fair conversation with Brian about what his interest and entitlement might be in that very unique circumstance. You understand?
Yes.
Okay. So that's really what a consultation looks like. Obviously, we did an abridged consultation. Obviously, we did it in 5 minutes with a very extreme fact pattern, and there was a reason for that. Most people don't have that fact pattern, and most times we have to delve a little bit deeper into what the conversation would be in order to get more facts and information to give you more pointed information. What you will notice she did not have was her tax return. She did not have her pay stub. She did not have her exact value of her house. She did not have a lot of the concrete financials that we would need in order to conclude a divorce. But for the purposes of a consultation, it's really just to give the attorney a sense generally of what your case looks like and what needs to be done, generally speaking. They can then guide you, like I did here with Desiree, into some avenues that she needs to explore a little deeper and some information she needs to gather for the next meeting or for the ultimate first 4-way conference on her case. The point of a consultation is not so that you can leave that room knowing exactly how your case is going to end. It is not so we can sit here and tell you what is the parenting time going to be definitively, what's the child support going to be according to the calculator, what exact amount is he going to get for the house. That is not the point of a consultation. What you really want to gather from the consultation is, did you feel comfortable with the lawyer that you were sitting with? Did they ask you the questions that you felt were pertinent, or did they ask you questions that you really never thought of, and therefore they were really pertinent because you didn't even know to ask those questions? You want to make sure when you leave that office that you have an understanding of who you'll be working with and how the firm works and operates, and who you would contact if you have any questions. So what I would recommend before you go into a consultation is not necessarily gathering the to the penny idea of what your assets are worth, but instead gathering a list of questions that are important to you. If you know that this is an emotional time and that you're struggling with the emotion of the divorce or the separation, the parenting time, ask, who can I talk to? Do you recommend a therapist? Do you recommend a parent coordinator? Who are the people that you recommend? Because really, that is the crux of your concern in that moment. It's not really how much is the weekly child support. Desiree's concern sitting here was not what's the parenting schedule going to be. We talked about it because it was appropriate to talk about and to give guidance on what to gather. But the crux of her conversation was, what am I doing about this house? Which is why she got the pointed direction of go home, find receipts, find information, and find anything that might lend itself to Brian's argument. So, Desiree, do you understand all that?
Yes.
And did you feel that you had any questions that you needed to ask me before you concluded this conversation?
No.
That's really how a consultation should look. If you need to have a consultation, if you need any information, or if you're just investigating what does the divorce look like in your situation, please do not hesitate to contact us. You can find us at SZ Law Firm. I fucking thing.